3.3 major project, project 6, moving forward. I had my presentation for project 5 with Rebecca and Judith and myself. Very positive. Not seen both of them for a long time, so it was good to show them some of the work that I've got. Some very positive feedback, constructive criticism on both parts for mine and Judy's work, and then obviously Rebecca put some input, so she was really pleased with where we were at, and she was kind of focused on telling us how in-depth our work is, so that was really good to speak to two people that I'd not had any communication with for a short period of time. So for project 6, I've gone in and I've done my mind map as per usual. I've mainly focused on interrogation boards for project 6, which I think has been really important. It's now time to start making serious decisions of where I'm going to be and where I need to be, because one thing that I have discovered, I think a lot of this now making final pieces is now moving away from sample making, going large scale, documenting ideas of design and where you want them to be. So I spent a few sessions doing the interrogation board from all of the projects and just pulling and bringing it together so that it started to construct a summary board. I've started to put together a summary board with Google Slides. So again, it's a good way of recapping. I'm still going forward with the ideas of armour. Got the 2 final pieces from project stroke 1 and 2, and there are elements of the creativeness and the playfulness in the work, but I think over a period of time this has started to become a lot more mature. But I think the playfulness and the experimentation is just an ongoing thing in my work, and it's been quite nice through the 2 group tutorials that people can actually see all of this filtering through into the work, from the playground, from the ideas of the armour, and the shapes that I use. I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at selecting colour palettes, but I think anything that I do use I make use of, and all in all probably sometimes the colour palettes are slightly different. I think this one in here in particular is a little bit sort of possibly unique, and then sometimes I'm guided by the use of materials that dictate a colour palette. So as just previously mentioned, the main focus will be a form of armour for my final pieces. I'm really enjoying the idea of researching the armour with the ateliers and the couture houses, and making the pieces register with them becoming a little bit more kind of refined and well made as much as I possibly can. I'm not a garment construction. I have a bit of an idea, but I'm not no pattern cutter or anything like that, so I do kind of push the boundaries and experiment with putting knitted pieces together. But all in all, so far it's just been working really well. I think this is part of the dyslexia where my problem solving just kicks in and literally I just get on with it, and then the ideas just start to evolve from there. So through the use of my interrogation boards, I have now concluded that my colour palette is going to be a red and grey. And through research of what that means as a colour palette, it was quite interesting because I think it connects really well with my work, how it's dramatic, how it's creative, and how it evokes energy, which I think this kind of filters through into the idea of the pieces becoming performance pieces, because I have continued to use the body as a platform for my ideas with the dressmaker's dummy, and then obviously I use myself as a model when I'm doing my photography work. So just working through the interrogation boards, I've lost my way a little bit with the flexible project plan. So I think kind of the idea is always there, and I think this kind of stems from being a designer, that we kind of continually make plans and bullet points and post-it notes and writing things down. Don't know whether I feel a little bit restricted, but I have put everything down as much as I possibly can with the Padlet so that I can see the progress that I'm making with each of the projects. But I'm kind of at this point and still feel a little bit, I don't want to be tied down by it. This piece comes from an earlier piece of work. I think this was kind of important to bring in. Just some slight line drawings of figure, because I'm starting to now evolve with the idea of illustration. And just moving forward again, I'm just putting together and going through the ideas and so forth. I will come back to the line drawing figures in a moment. I've maintained some of the colour palettes that I may introduce with some of the three-dimensional body braces, where I've now started to reduce the scale of my samples and my final pieces, because I am finding it quite difficult with the large scale pieces that they don't always necessarily work. But then I thought, well, if I start to reduce down, I could probably or possibly introduce a little bit of colour. Now, one thing that I do find useful are sometimes the white pages of a sketchbook. I think it kind of gives a little bit of a break as I'm working through the sketchbook. And some people think, well, why is there a blank white page? But I think it's also kind of a little bit of time of reflection, and then you can pick back up and then get back into the project work. Now, coming back to the figure stroke life drawing, I'd started to research drawing lines with how the body can, with a simple line, look as though it's performing and moving, and I'd started to look at this in 3.2, so I'm going to bring it into 3.3, but this has actually helped me with my own figure drawing, just to document some of my ideas. So I have kind of semi-copied them and made myself some prototypes, some master copies, which I can go back to. They're of all shapes and sizes and scale and so forth, for me to add in my designs. And so again, moving on, I've started to think about a exhibition. What am I going to do? I have, in all fairness, got a little bit sick and tired of trying to communicate with studios, and particularly the Carpet Museum, which I do favour, but they never seem to get back to me. As to why, I don't know, because I was there last year. So I am going to have this discussion with my tutor. I'm thinking of painting out the garage downstairs, because we've had some renovation work done on this, and I think I'm going to paint it out, and I'm going to turn this into the exhibition room where I can decide what and where goes. I've not got to sign into a contract. I can make video footage, I can include written descriptions, I can change the exhibition. But as of yet, I'm going to make some decisions in Project 7. I think it's important for the tutor to see that there isn't continuous, ongoing note-making, bullet pointing on different areas of things to do, and critical thinking. I know that the course materials ask you to summarise and re-evaluate and critically think about your work, but for me this does continuously happen, and sometimes I don't always think that this gets picked up on. So I think this is a fair point, because I think it does show that you are making the effort to make sure that the work is becoming a little bit more in depth. So I've broken everything down now. I've got my colour palette with the red and the grey, and I've started moving forward with some concluding final pieces and ideas, and these few pages through here are illustrative drawings, playing around with ideas, some samples that will make translations into knit. One thing that I do find that helps me a lot is to do drawings and then translate these into knitted pieces. This worked well in 3.2 and was quite worked well for me as a designer, because it opened up other areas of design. I like the idea of layering, so if I think of an idea, I can layer over it, I can actually put in pieces of design, a few simple ideas and drawings, and working out my own pattern of how my knitted pieces are going to be constructed. As we can see, the pieces are very armour-like. I think it's important to continuously take photographs of the knitted pieces that I've done, and overall the pieces are going to be quite textural, large scale, small scale, with a view to the ideas of armour, using balls and three-dimensional shapes of pulling and twisting the knit. Again, this will be another summary in Project 7. Large scale sleeve there. I like the idea of drawing like this because it continuously, I found by doing this with the layered drawings that I'm making an improvement on an illustration without relying and keep making references back to the research that I'd done earlier. The other thing that I like doing, or I think's been important, is just to have a break from some of the making, and also just sort of mark making. Some of these ideas could be translated into knitted pieces, but I think it's also what I'm doing, because it's knit and mixed media. It's for me then to draw them, make the drawings textural, and then translate into a piece of knit. These drawings were playing with the ideas and proportions of the red and the grey. As we can see here, the red is a little bit overwhelming. So then I introduced larger scale areas of grey with the minimum amount of red, and I think this works perfectly well. My inspiration behind this has been Tom Brown. I'd been looking at some of his work in the collections of the Toile, and he has really pushed it for this year's collection to just bring out these calico coloured pieces, and then they're beautifully embroidered. But what his point is that the calico prototype is giving the idea of how to make reference and how to further investigate. And also, which was an interesting point, he actually said it's something that an audience never gets to see in design. So I've kind of got areas of those elements in my work as well, and I think my drawings and illustration are very prototype-like. And then again, as the work has developed, some of these drawings that I've been doing have actually translated into knitted little samples, which some of them are going to go large scale. But again, just keep pushing and pushing with the ideas. And then through here, some close-up photographs. I think photography is very important for me because it's so visual, because I'm a visual learner. So I think when you start to take close-ups of knitted texture, it almost becomes abstract and mark making in its own right. So this has allowed me to start do some further investigations into drawing. And then over here we can see these pieces are particularly large scale. They're about 1 metre long, so I've particularly just focused on the red and the grey. This here was making reference to the pom-pom yarn, and this here made reference to the thin red line for dyslexia and the raised lines of the paper. And then to make connection with that, Tom Brown, he did a collection on school uniforms. I like his idea of structure. In actual fact, that's what his staff wear at the atelier, and I just think it's wonderful. And then just bringing in and referencing and clarifying my research, the school jumper with the red, rugby shirts from 3.2, Vivienne Westwood's Harris tweed and schoolboy caps, and then some of my own work. A lot of my work works both ways, the front and the back, and I particularly like that way of working because it again plays with more ideas. And then just to conclude Project 6, I am introducing the armour pieces, the back braces. These are going to be used as a platform for me to attach my knitwear. I think my knit has got to be particularly durable if I'm going to be doing some performance with them. And then just to clarify, further for Project 7, going back to my own personal prototypes that I'd already put together myself. I just love working in neutral. Works particularly well for me. And the other thing that I would like to just conclude with, I am undergoing a collaboration with a graphic designer. He's going to throw some ideas at me for my poster for my exhibition.